Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to I3 Pulse. Today, we're going to be covering a very dramatic incident that occurred 2 days ago. The U.S. conducted large-scale strikes across Caracas, the capital of Venezuela, and they captured Nicolas Maduro, who was in charge of Venezuela, not anymore, and his wife, and flew them out of the country on Saturday. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sheikh. How you doing? So, Sheikh, this situation came out of nowhere, really. And the first question that everyone's asking is, how was the U.S. able to do this so precisely? And why do they only target Maduro while ignoring his inner circle?
Yeah, so the vivid truth what happened is that the regime in Venezuela is still intact, okay? Capturing just the head doesn't change much, really. The regime is a large, number of institutions. So that's number one. Now, number two is that, definitely it was humiliating for Venezuela to see its own leader and his wife, too, right? Not just the leader.
Yeah.
Captured and kidnapped by another foreign country. What we could say is definitely that there was no resistance at all. That's what we saw. Zero resistance. No air defenses, no Navy, no Air Force, no military, nothing really. There's literally nothing.
Well, Sheikh, on that point, right, what the American government is saying is that they use stealth technology. They planned everything out. They hit, they did some strikes. They hit certain little, air defense systems that allowed them to go in and conduct their attack.
No, not correct. That's not correct. Sure, stealth, the F-35 is fine. But did they basically destroy the air defenses in Caracas? No. And the way basically, when they kidnapped Maduro, they didn't use F-35.
Yeah.
The F-35 didn't go down into his building and grab it. Okay, there was helicopters that definitely are easily discoverable by all type of radars within the capital, right? So no, actually, sadly, this is the fact of the matter is that definitely there was no resistance. Now the question is why, right? Why was there no resistance? To understand the situation, we need to understand that President Monroe of the United States created something called the Monroe Doctrine, which is that the Western Hemisphere is the United States' backyard. It is untouchable by anybody. Anybody who threatens a single inch of the Western Hemisphere is threatening the United States. Okay? So Latin America and the Caribbean, Central America, let's say, are all under American influence. There's a long list of coups and assassinations and incursions into these countries. Since almost like 100 years. So there's nothing new there. And Hugo Chavez, when he came into the leadership of Venezuela and created a scene or an image of confrontation with the United States, we need to understand that there's a possibility that this whole thing was a show. That means basically under the table, he was dealing with the Americans and he was just showing that he is a hero for the Venezuelans. And I want the viewer to understand that this is not the first time. There's no conspiracy theory here. For the longest time, the colonial Western countries have used this technique to install a loyal agent on these colonies that they, colonialize, and to make that, agent regime stable, they fake this whole, nationalistic resistance against their own selves, right? Whether it's the British, the French, or the Americans, it's been done before multiple times.
Yeah, definitely, Sheikh. Like, nobody wants, it won't work if a leader says that I am serving an interest of a foreign nation, right? The people will not like that. The people want to hear that, death to this guy, forget that guy. But one thing, just on Hugo Chavez, he's very famously got the U.S. and Trump complains about it, that we had access to the oil, but we didn't have access to the oil in terms of nationalizing the oil. At the same time, though, he was selling the oil, half of it to the U.S.
Yeah,
but
if that's not if that's not an enough signal, you're selling half of your oil to the United States. Like what is, right? But anyway, continue.
But in that case, even if he's selling it, right? But it's still nationally owned, right? It's not like the oil companies are pillaging it, and like so selling oil, it would seem that it's worse for the U.S. being sold oil versus stealing oil, like what Trump is trying to do right now, right? So some might say because he did that, it shows that he really was trying to stand up against the Americans, and he was somebody that the Americans didn't like, for example.
Yeah, that definitely is not true. Because if he was against the Americans, first of all, the Americans would have easily have done to Hugo Chavez what they've done today to Maduro, right? But put that aside. Let's put the speculations away.
Yeah,
we have an incident that already happened.
Yes.
Okay. The regime in Caracas is 100% intact. Okay. The United States did not destroy anything. They went in a very surgical, operation. They snatched the guy and his wife and left.
Actually, there's a comment just on this point where somebody wrote, Trump is a real gangster. He snatched him easy, like taking a candy from a baby. Right?
Yeah. So that means basically who allowed him to do that with zero resistance? For example, you need to understand, like the American Navy has been encircling Venezuela for the longest time. There's zero resistance, right? Like there's zero resistance. Okay, you don't want to like initiate a fight with the United States, blah. Okay, fine, but like they intruded into your country. Like when will you basically start resisting? So what this tells us, and this is definitely like a most likely scenario, right, is that the rest of the military apparatus in Venezuela are in cahoots with the Americans.
Yeah.
So the regime in Venezuela is American enough, and two things could have happened. Okay, there's really only two options. Either Maduro, with some other allies within the Venezuelan regime, they flipped fully away from the Americans, and then they moved with the Chinese. Okay, and that's why the rest of the regime, alongside the United States, decided to take him out. Okay, so that's one possibility. The other possibility is that. The Americans needed to let's make it three possibilities. The Americans, because this one could be two ways. The Americans needed a scapegoat. They wanted to teach the Chinese that if you're trying to meddle into my backyard, this is what's going to happen to your boys. Now it's a signal to the regimes themselves, from Chile to Ecuador and Colombia and all, the whole Latin American. That if you're going to work with the Chinese without our green light, what's going to happen to you is what happened to Maduro. Okay. Now this could have happened in two ways. Either basically Maduro is part of the game, and he's very loyal to the United States. He's like, look, I'm fine. You can basically fake that you guys snatched me. I'll be there. I'll give you the thumbs up. I'll give you the smiles.
Literally doing the thumbs up.
Like, that's so stupid.
He's like, Happy New Year.
Yeah.
It's like a joke.
Like, I know, it's crazy. Like the guy is going. He's going to spend the rest of his life behind bars, and he's so jolly. Like, come on, So it's a possibility. I'm not saying it's 100%. I'm just saying it is an option. This is one of the possibilities. The second possibility is that whether, even if he's loyal to the United States, the rest of the regime said, well, let's basically throw him under the bus and give him a scapegoat to the United States because the United States needs it, and we are very loyal to the United States, and therefore, he can, whatever it is, right? So this is the three possibilities, okay? So there's really two possibilities, one with like an A part or a B part. Either Maduro really worked with the Chinese behind America's back, and the American basically intercepted that communication, and they decided to take him out. That's a possibility, and I think it's a very good possibility, right? The second possibility is that Maduro really didn't, was entertaining the Chinese relationship within a prior American understanding, but still basically the Americans needed a scapegoat to just show the world. Whether him cooperating or it was against his will and he's sold by the rest of his teammates in Venezuela, the Americans decided to take their own agent for their bigger national security and their war against their Cold War with China.
So, Sheikh, you mentioned China, right, a few times in this equation, right? Yeah. Now, people online are mentioning few reasons why this could have happened, right? And I want to get your thoughts. Number one, oil. Right, America wants to increase their, or they get more capacity for oil. Another one is getting a real good puppet leader who will serve the Zionist agenda, because there's pictures showing Maduro wearing the keffiyeh, and he's long live Palestine. What do you think?
No. Oh, sadly, we have lots of this leftist propaganda. Even though it's kind of like pro-Palestinian, I just call it propaganda. It's like ignorance, seriously. Sorry to say it this way, but, the United States, as we said, already have access to the oil. Already has access. The regime is... the incident proved that the regime... Forget Maduro. Maduro could be Chinese, yes, sure, or working with China, or a great Venezuelan nationalist who's dealing with the Chinese for the sake of Venezuela. That's all fine. That's all actually, very likely. Or likely, if not very likely, yeah? But... and the whole Zionist thing, forget that. That's not like... What the Americans want is to hurt the Chinese within world trade.
Okay.
It's a cold war between the United States and China. Okay. What does that mean? That means basically which economy is going to withstand the shock. It's a war about economic resiliency. Which economy is going to basically crack first? Okay. Both countries have nukes. No, they're not going to go into a hot war with each other. And that's the war. There's a war of technology and economics, period, until some conventional wars happen. And usually the wars right now in the 21st century are proxy wars.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be America versus China. It's going to be China versus Taiwan. And behind Taiwan, there's the United States. It's Russia versus Ukraine. And behind Ukraine, there's Europe, really. And the United States, for whenever they want. So that's how it is. If let's say the Chinese would be able in the future to recruit a proxy in Latin America, it'll be that proxy in Latin America versus the United States. Behind that proxy is China. This is the probable wars in the 21st century. It's because otherwise things would go really sideways, right? So, but anyway, the main war is economic, technological. Because the technology is related to the economics anyway, because technology helps in the productivity of the economy and so forth. So what does that mean? That means basically the Americans are trying to really cut off many trade deals and trade, let's say, even trade deals and trade routes to the Chinese. Also cut off energy sources to the Chinese and so forth.
Yeah, it's even we saw that the Venezuelan oil tanker that was supposedly going somewhere else, China or somewhere, and then the U.S. just came and hit it, right? So they're blocking it from the Chinese, and we see that also Michael Waltz, who is the U.S. ambassador to the UN. Right, he spelled it out very clearly. He said, this is the Western Hemisphere. This is where we live. We're not going to allow the Western Hemisphere to be used as a base of operation for adversaries and competitors and rivals of the U.S.
Yeah.
And you cannot have the largest energy reserves of the world under the control of adversaries. So on the concept of energy, we spoke about blocking China. Venezuela has, in terms of oil, it's, it shows is ranked number one, even above Saudi Arabia. Now, in this case, you mentioned the U.S. had access to it. Trump was mentioning recently that he's getting the oil companies now to go in, and he wants oil companies to go in. Does that mean that they didn't have full access to it? Do they gain benefit from the oil now, even though the China was the main thing? Like, is this a secondary benefit in this case?
Look, at the end of the day, we will know bit by bit how much the Chinese were in Venezuela, right? I can tell you that there is a Chinese intent to basically penetrate the Latin American markets. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, they have many different markets that they're basically dealing with,
and they're a large trading partner for a lot in Latin countries.
So, but the United States have allowed that trade to exist, right? Now, some might say, well, it's a contradiction. It's not a contradiction because, see, these countries need cheap products so they can continue to survive. The Americans don't build this stuff. So they're like, okay, yeah, it's fine. Just if you want to buy cupcakes and like plastic and cups and little bags from China, go ahead. There's no problem. But don't deal with China and give China the ability to build a base against me, meaning the United States. That's a red line. So the message here basically was to the Latin American countries, to all third world countries that are basically under American influence, and to the Chinese, that if you're going to try to mess and try to build, let's say, a proxy, we're going to nip it, we're going to smash it from day one.
So, Sheikh, on this, we spoke about Venezuela. We're speaking a little bit about Latin America. A lot of interventions in Latin America. But Trump just went on a tirade, right? And if you can pull up clip number 4, which is the Trump clip, him speaking specifically. Now, Donald Trump speaks about Greenland. Just a very short clip that I want to show. We can get that as well. Him threatening Greenland. And this comes after, Sheikh, to kind of lay the background. It comes after him threatening Colombia, threatening Cuba, saying that the Colombian leader, he himself is sending, cocaine. He has cocaine factories. And they asked him, is he going to be next? He's like, oh, well, probably he will be. So he's threatening him, right? He's threatening Cuba. They're going to fall soon, right? And then as well, he's threatening Greenland. We'll play a Greenland clip. I think it's fine. We don't have to. We can pull it.
We need Greenland from a national security situation. It's so strategic. Right now, Greenland is covered with Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security.
So now Trump is mentioning Russia and China as it relates to Greenland. You even have different elements of the U.S. government saying on live TV, if the U.S. takes over Greenland, Europe can't do anything about it. Who can do anything about it? So will Trump take over Greenland?
Let's say the United States, basically, the problem is that within the Arctic, within the North Pole, you have Russia, right? You have Greenland, maybe a little bit of Scandinavian countries if they have depth in the water there, but and you have Canada.
Yeah.
Now, the only spot for the United States is Alaska.
Yes,
that's the only spot. So the majority of that Arctic circle is dominated by either European, Canadian, and Russian/Chinese pathways, right?
Yeah.
So that's why it's a problem, because the world trade will be moving up north. It's quicker, it's cheaper, it's
ice is melting.
Cost effective because of the ice melt. Yeah, I mean, because of the ice melt, all this is happening.
Yeah.
Otherwise, these pathways would have been secured a long time ago by these countries. It's not like geography changed. It's just the melting of the ice is what's creating this, economic shift and an opportunity for this economic shift, really. So the United States is disadvantaged. Okay, it's not in the North Pole. Alaska was the Americans got Alaska by chance, by almost a hoax. The Russians needed some money and they got it for $50 million, whatever it is, right? So, and the Russians are trying to say, hey, this is my land, we need it back. Putin's saying that, right? So imagine they do is the United States basically will be blocked from the major trade routes of world trade. So they want to compete, and definitely it creates a big national security issue. It's a big national security issue. You see what I'm saying? And that's why I believe this is why the Canadians are pushing back, because they know the United States needs them. So they're playing the longer game. They're seeing who's gonna say ouch first from biting fingers, right? It's a biting fingers game. So, but anyway, staying away from the Canadian issue for now. We'll discuss it later. He's serious. Like, he's serious about this whole Greenland thing. And Denmark commented and pushed back on this, like, stop speaking like that. And they said they asked for an apology. The question is basically, can the European Union defend its sovereignty? I mean, at the end of the day, Greenland is a Danish, country.
And there's a lot of interviews with the European MPs, and they were being very careful about this topic, actually. And they were saying that, we don't like to speak about this topic. And some would say at most, okay, yeah, we're with Denmark. It belongs to them. But they weren't condemning Donald Trump for his statements. They were being very careful. So it kind of signals, I don't know if they can does that mean that they're scared? Like, if Trump really wants to make a move for this?
I mean, look, it could be interpreted in many different ways. One of them, I'm not saying this is the more likely, actually. I don't think it's the more likely, but it could be that they are willing to and open to give Greenland for something in return. So you need to understand, Europe is in a very precarious state of affairs. Okay, it's the old continent of the world. It's too old. It's cracking. It's from every sense, like real population. It's economic problems, a million things, and Russians are basically attacking it, and it's just so yeah. Maybe they're open for trading it, but for something big.
Now, this one thing is trading, another one is taking it. Right, and he was even saying like they don't have any defense there. He was kind of just mocking it, right? And there were statements even from that were mentioning that Greenland is part of NATO to kind of make Trump kind of pause. But is there a chance that Donald Trump just goes in and just takes it?
I don't know. This guy's too crazy, but
with anyone else, I'd be like, I don't think so. But with him, it's like you really have to think.
I'm leaning toward no.
Yeah,
definitely. It's just like. This would make a big shift, really.
That would be the full-on age, but it's already the age of empires, right? Like going into Venezuela, like it's like just going in and out.
Yeah, I do think he needs it, and like if the American geostrategist says this is needed for the American empire to continue to exist, they will get it somehow. Yeah. So we need to wait and see, basically.
Now, what about Colombia and Cuba? Like Trump threatening Colombia?
I think like look, if there's a regime that now goes with the Chinese, they'll do the same thing. But I'm telling you, most of these regimes in Latin America, have already long relationship with the United States. What was the name of the school that was used to train the military generals and the junta in Latin America and in the United States? I think they closed it down after the School of the Americas, if I'm not mistaken. It's called the School of the Americas, if you want to Google that and maybe share some information with the audience. The School of the Americas basically have trained, was within the United States.
Yeah, within Georgia.
It trained some of the most horrific generals who had the worst human rights profiles in Latin America. So you need to understand the default is understanding that these regimes, even if they show being leftist and socialist, that they are in cahoots with the Americans. This is the default. I'm not saying those things don't switch, and maybe Maduro actually did play with the Chinese, and that's why he was ousted.
And Chinese were literally in a meeting with him, literally just hours before the U.S. just went in and just snatched them.
Exactly. It was timed very well by the Americans. Like the Americans timed it so well to give a message to China.
Yeah.
Now, the Chinese Minister of Foreign Affairs said we were shocked. I mean, you don't usually hear countries are shocked.
Yeah, because the word they used actually was a word that they don't typically.
Shocked.
Yeah, they don't use it. Yeah.
They said they were shocked, and maybe extremely shocked.
Yeah.
So Anyway, we need to understand basically what does this mean. Is the Chinese now communicating back to the Americans saying, because we're shocked now? When somebody is shocked, what does that mean? That means basically they're gonna react or change their behavior. When you get shocked, you change your behavior. You understand? Like we need to read between the lines. These political terminologies, every single word counts. Okay, and every single word is understood. I still remember reading, this is a long time ago, like 15 years ago or something, maybe even more now. It's crazy. Time is passing, but this booklet by the American ambassador to Saudi Arabia. He wrote a book on geopolitics and real politics. And one of the things he said basically is these terms, there's specific terms that a diplomat needs to understand when to say. Like the word shocking within the diplomatic wordings or terminology might signal that that the Chinese are going to change their behavior too. And this is and to be honest, look, if I was China, what would I be doing right now? Like, if the Americans are going to play this type of game and change the rules of the world from globalization and free trade to literally like Age of the Empires style, Middle Ages, just go and like take your navy and army and ships and just go and like kill people and conquer countries. Will the Chinese do the same thing within the Asia Pacific?
Like Taiwan, for example, is that a possibility?
To be honest, like I don't think Taiwan would be first choice. Like,
what would be first? I guess what would be more like, because if you're saying Taiwan wouldn't be the first, maybe someone else might be before them.
If I was China, I would do the Philippines. Sorry, guys. I love the Philippines, but
Can you, I guess for the viewers, why Philippines and not Taiwan? Because everyone always speaks, when they speak about China, they speak about taking over Taiwan.
It's too close to the look. Taiwan is part of China, and the Chinese are playing it very well. There's already a political party that's pro-China unification inside Taiwan, and Taiwan is fully basically like encircled by the Chinese, and why would they care? Really, the only thing I would take Taiwan for is the chips, and the Chinese already are building the same machines, so they're not. But see, even Taiwan, even though they are the biggest chip maker in the world. They're still dependent upon Western technology. You know what I'm saying? Like that's why, like Taiwan is like, it's too big of a cost to basically conquer it right now. It's useless, and that's what the Chinese, by the way, have been saying. The Chinese were saying, "Well, we don't want to have a war in front of our coast. We're not dumb to do so." So they will try to basically block Taiwan and try to, but no, I don't think Taiwan will be the first, personally. I don't, but I'm not denying that it could be. I'm just saying basically it's not the only option on the table. It's not the only possibility.
Now we have some questions on the chat, and I want to go back to the China question a little bit after. People are asking about what about Putin in this scenario, right? From the UN side, they were criticizing the US a lot just recently about going against international norms and just pretty much, as you mentioned, having an age of empires approach, which I found interesting because they're also entering into Ukraine as well, right? But I guess, what do you think? How do you think Putin will take this? Is there any message for Putin in addition to Xi?
No, I don't think it's really directed at Putin. No.
And Putin's busy right now, anyways, right?
Because look, the reason Putin has limited ability to conquer places, and Putin cares about its own strategic depth within Central Asia, the Caucasus, and Eastern Europe. Right, that's what they care about mostly. But the Chinese are a world power, unlike Russia. Russia is more of a regional power. It is still global in nature, but it's more regional than global. Still a global power. I'm not denying that. It's one of the global powers in the world, but it's still very limited global power. The Chinese wants to own Southeast Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and Latin America. They want to own the global South.
Which is most of the world, pretty much, in that sense.
Which is, from a population perspective, definitely the vast majority of the world. Right? Like you have 1 billion in the north and 7 billion in the south. And if you can create trade and control 7 billion people in the global south, then you're going to really constrain Europe, Western Europe, and the United States. You see what I'm saying? So the Chinese are not playing games. The Chinese wants to literally choke the Americans. They don't say that, but they want to, and that's why I don't want to say I empathize, but I totally understand the Americans' reactions. They're it's like the next 10 years will define the next century.
So, Sheikh, I want to kind of because I want to explore what options China has. But before we do go into the options China has, there are a couple other things that are happening right now, and I do want to speak about Iran as well. But right before Iran, there's some recent events, and I want to see if they're tied together.
Okay.
So last week, right, we spoke about Israel's recognition of Somaliland, where you mentioned that the U.S. allowed Israel there to gain better access to blocking before the Bab el-Mandeb Strait and controlling that route as a choke point for the Chinese and the Europeans.
We said that has to do with China, correct?
Now,
the Houthis versus Israelis, that was going to block the whole thing. I mean, the Houthis already blocked it just by fighting the Israelis within Israeli, but now, the Americans took Israel and put it in the map under the tag of Somaliland. It's a shame for the Somaliland people, but but now it's Israel in Somaliland versus the Houthis. It's going to create lots of problems. And that's very sensitive trade route, very sensitive and important trade route for the Chinese.
Now, for the Chinese, is it what aspect? Is it oil? Is it it's the goods that they're selling, that they're manufacturing goods specifically?
It's the trade route that connects China to Europe. Europe has 450 million people. Like 20% of the exports, if I'm not mistaken, I forgot the exact numbers, of China goes to Europe. That's a huge number. Do you see what I'm saying?
So now that's a challenge.
More
to the
than 20,
Chinese.
I think.
So that's a big challenge to Chinese and the Europeans. Now something else happened recently as well with the between Saudi Arabia and the UAE.
Yeah.
Right, where Saudi Arabia notably, right, attacked UAE-backed forces in Yemen, then gave the UAE, the Emiratis, a 24-hour deadline to get out of Yemen. Does this have anything to do with this, and how is this related?
Yeah, definitely. I think again, like the instabilities. This was an instability in Yemen. Any type of tension that happens at these countries that are at the gate of these waterways. We'll call them choke points.
Yes.
Right? Waterway choke points. There's 9 choke points in the world. So within the Red Sea, there's 2, right? Like the Suez Canal and the Bab el-Mandab Strait.
Yes. Now, moving from there to when the first thing people thought when Maduro was, deposed and kidnapped and taken to the U.S. and pretty much he got decapitated from his own country, if you were to use that word. The next person everyone's thinking of is Khamenei of Iran. Right now in Iran, there's a lot of protests. There is, deep economic crisis. In the past, actually, the Iranian inflation was very bad.
For the last couple
but now
weeks
it's even
almost.
worse.
Yeah.
And now, as you mentioned,
protests are all over the streets.
Yes.
For now a couple of weeks, if I'm not mistaken. Large, humongous protests that are calling for the demise of the regime.
So Sheikh, like this all happened in the same time that the Trump met Netanyahu. Netanyahu wants to, he always wants to take out Iran. That's all he thinks about every day. So is Iran next? Are they in trouble?
No. The Iranian regime is in trouble by its people, not by the United States and Israel. We've said a billion times that the Iranians are in cahoots with the Americans and the Israelis. And people don't like it, they don't have to like it. Any war right now against Iran will just strengthen the regime. That's number one. Number two, any war with Iran will also basically create, it will block the other super important route, which is the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah.
Now, the Strait of Hormuz is where basically most of the oil is going to go to China. From the UAE, from Saudi Arabia, from Iran, from Iraq, from Kuwait. Like that choke point from an energy supply perspective would really hurt China's ability to get energy sources. Same thing with Venezuela. But Venezuela sells oil to China. So that's now cut off, right? The trade route to Europe, that's cut off. The energy sources from Hormuz, that's cut off. Stuff that's not cut off by these 3 straits, the Strait of Malacca. If they create another problem in the Strait of Malacca, the Chinese are right now under a huge attack by Trump. Trump is attacking China in stages. There's phase 1 was tariffs. So he put embargo. He put tariffs across the whole planet Earth to pressure them and bully them not to trade with China. So whatever basically output he made. He's like, okay, now I'm done with the tariff tool, the tariff weapons. Let's go next. Next is basically the trade choke points.
And the tariffs did not really work so much, right, on the Chinese?
We don't know how much, basically. I mean, let's see.
Well, the fact he's going this far means that...
No, but it's like, I don't believe the Americans from the beginning thought that the tariffs would be enough. It's not. It's a multi... That's why this plan already was there before Trump became the president. Okay, so there's phase 1 is the tariffs. Second phase is now basically these choke points and these wars and conflicts in areas of important trade routes. And there might be phase 3 and 4. So we'll see basically with, Trump has been with us now for how long? A year.
My God, it feels like it's been 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it feels like a long time.
So if every year is a phase, there's at least 3 phases before he goes into like a sitting duck type of a presidency, right?
So in this case, you mentioned Iran. A war with Iran will strengthen the regime. Like, in what way would that? Now
because now every Iranian will say, "Why is people attacking us? This is why you're attacking our regime." So the national anger will basically go to the external enemy instead of the regime itself.
So Trump has recently made some big statements, and we can actually. I'll just summarize a clip even, it's just faster, where he warned Iran that the U.S. is locked and loaded and we're ready to strike if they rebuild their missile program.
Yeah.
Right? So he's making those threats. He's making threats if anyone's killed in the protest. I think 31 people have been killed. So is that to help the Iranian regime?
All this helps the regime. All of it helps the regime. You know what I'm saying? It's all time just to support the regime. If you don't want to support the regime, you go and bomb it right now. All this like empty talk just supports the regime itself. Because don't forget, there's like diehard supporters of the regime and there's diehard haters of the regime. But there's people in the middle.
Yeah.
Those will be swayed.
Yes.
When they see the regime attacked due to nationalism, they'll be swayed. That's how it works. It's very simple.
Now, Sheikh, on this point about Iran and working with the U.S., even the Brookings Institute and other analysts, they recommend an approach for how the U.S. can keep the entire Middle East rather in complete control. Yeah. And they mentioned actually that they argue Iran is a very key piece in balancing the Middle East, right? Making sure that you can't have one power that dominates the entire Middle East, then you lose complete control of it. Now, Israel, at the other end, wants to be the power of the entire Middle East. They don't want anyone else. They don't want Iran. They don't want Turkey. They don't want anyone else. So where do you see this going, right? Israel wants to smash Iran. The U.S. wants to, I'm assuming, you can correct me on this, to not let Israel get too strong, and they're letting them go into Somaliland, other places. Where do you see this going?
No, they said basically, like right now, nothing is happening against U.S. interest. Nothing. Zero. Everything's happening in alignment with U.S. interests. Everything is happening in the world right now within these four theaters is an attack on China. That's why the Chinese are furious. That's why the Chinese UN representative or ambassador gave a 5-minute long talk criticizing harshly the United States right now. So it's not usual.
Is there anything happening on the Strait of Hormuz that right now that could be threatening
That's what I'm saying.
China?
But you need a war. If you have a war, if the Israelis now strike or the Americans strike, and the Iranians now say we're going to block the Strait of Hormuz, that's what they always say.
Yeah.
So who are they hurting? The Americans? The Americans don't buy nothing from that strait. Like their energy comes from Venezuela. Don't forget.
This is a good point, actually, Sheikh. That the
Americans actually export oil. The Americans are look. The Chinese have many weaknesses. Maybe we've never spoke about that, but the Chinese they still have weaknesses. That's why lots of the American hawks they feel they can destroy China. It's far fetched, but at the end of the day, let's see who wins. Definitely, this year is decisive. Like we said, the next 10 years will define the next century, but this year will define the 10 years. Because if the Chinese crack, and I doubt it, again, they might not last. I can assure you that the American hawks are saying the Chinese will not last even until the end of the presidency of Trump. They're going to go full force to crush the Chinese period. That's what they're doing. But the Chinese are prepared, I think. Personally, I think they're gonna take the hit. Sure, the Chinese are not as strong as America. We understand that. But what's happening is the gap of difference in power is shrinking. The question is, can they continue that? The goal for the Americans is basically just stop them and crush them right now. Because at the speed of filling the gap within a couple of years, and I've said I think 3 to 5 years before. I think last year I predicted 3 to 5 years. So
that China can catch up and
exactly.
The US,
maximum 5 years. If the Chinese are not cracked within the next 5 years, this gap will be almost closed. If not closed, and if not, the Chinese surpassing America. 5 years, right? 3 to 5 years. I keep my word for that, and that's why this year is crucial. And let's see what the Chinese geostrategists are planning. And again, the word very extremely shocked. We want to keep an eye to see how the Chinese react to that. The beautiful thing about China, they're composed, and they'll study, they're quiet, and they'll move. When they move, they move.
You play the long game, the Chinese. They're very, they're not just go blah, 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 and get themselves in trouble. Now, there's one last question on Iran. Okay, you mentioned there's external kind of forces, right? Which you mentioned that, okay, well, it's not really nothing really serious for them right now. But then there is an internal, pushback from their own people. If things, like how risky is this for Iran, right? They have the water issue. You have many people in their government that are actually saying that, look, you know what, we're willing to hear you out. Like, it seemed to be made kind of more consolatory, they could kind of kind of compromising.
No regime will say that unless they're precarious.
Yeah.
They're vulnerable.
Yeah, and they're vulnerable right now. So how can they maneuver this internal situation? Is it even possible, or are they in trouble from that standpoint?
But that's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say basically the Americans are there to help them. So, let's see.
If to help them, do you see a point I'm trying to give a hypothetical.
They could create just a small war.
Yes, like another 12 that you're saying, right?
Yeah, just so they can support the regime. But I'm just trying to say right now, it seems that they might even make it a bigger war and create a big issue. But don't forget, like the Strait of Hormuz might affect global.
There's going to be a lot.
The global economy, not just. I'm just saying, if it does happen, this is again, at least this is a signal to the Chinese that we're coming to get you.
Now, you mentioned China. One last thing I do want to wrap up with, and we can go and see if there's any live questions here, is that China is in a tough position because the U.S. is now ramping up their, let's say their economic and trade wars and also trying to crack the Chinese. What can the Chinese do in response? This is the vulnerability from an oil standpoint. How can they mitigate that risk?
Look, one of the options is just to keep doing what they're doing, building bilateral trade agreements, building better products, strengthening their country, advancing their technologies, becoming more independent of the Western technological ecosystem, especially the chip design machines in specific, and the software for chip design itself, and sophisticated engines and so forth. So they can continue focus on that and not react. The Chinese are, as you said, basically are great at the weight game, and so they've been doing well. So let's see. I cannot predict what they're going to be doing, because one of those options is do nothing. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep building these bilateral relationships, and try to basically get into the political influence space and build your own proxies across the global south. They're not great at the game yet, right? So.
But America, is it possible, Sheikh, that America, in really focusing on trying to crack China, they're doing things that undermine everything that they speak for, and deep down, all these other people in countries in the global south are just waiting for their chance to just leave American influence and run straight into China.
So that's what I'm saying. I think that's why it might be the best for the Chinese to just basically play the longer game, just wait, do nothing, critique America, and use soft power to discredit the American, and Western culture in general. And to be honest, basically, let's say the Americans stop the trade of Hormuz. Okay, fine. The Chinese has the Russians. Russia is one of the biggest energy superpowers in the world. It's not like China will be on its knees. The Chinese helped the Russians in its war, with Ukraine, and the Russians will help China in its war with the United States. They're super tightly allied. You see what I'm saying? So it's not like, I don't believe what the Americans are doing will crack China. Sure, it might basically hurt it a little bit. It's part of the game. But can you stop us? No. They're going to continue with their advancements. They're going to continue with their independence. They're going to continue with building their powers. They're going to continue with their ship building, and chip building technological advancements. China needs some time, that's all. So I don't think they will react. I believe right now China, personally, if I'm going to guess, I'm going to say 65%, they're going to do nothing. And they're going to continue doing what you're doing. They're going to continue to build in technological advancements and build their country and build their military capacity and economic advancements. That's what they're going to be doing.
Yeah, let's see. It's good to see what's next. Especially as the U.S. It could be they're sabotaging themselves. Just people are just shocked at how crazy these guys are going. Now, going to the chat, live chat, got some questions here. One question is, who would China be most likely to recruit in Latin America?
Well, it seems like Venezuela, right? Now, they have good relationship with Argentina and Brazil. By the way, Brazil is the biggest country. If they can actually ally themselves with Brazil and the Brazilians, the problem is, again, it's not like that. The problem is that these Latin American countries, they know if they actually have any, they're scared from their own, shadow, right? But Brazil is the biggest country. If Brazil basically aligns itself with China, that would be a huge hit for the Americans. Now, and maybe the Chinese are delaying this until they become fully independent. It's like it's a phased approach, right? So maybe the Chinese said, look, we're not going to go and basically offer something to the others because we still we are not independent fully ourselves. And maybe that's why they're not basically right now choosing to infiltrate anybody. And that's why the gas is that, the Chinese are not pushing for it. Probably Maduro basically if he offered something himself instead of the Chinese offering. Because I don't see the Chinese trying to win the political elites in these countries. They're just trying to do economics. Why? And I'm telling you, the reason why is they are not independent themselves. Imagine you're going to go to people and tell them, look, why don't you rely on me? They look at the third world country will look at the Chinese and say, you guys can't even build your own chips. Go build your own chips. What you guys are doing? You guys can't, if I'm going to buy stuff from you and the Americans put an embargo on me, I'm screwed and you're screwed. So that's why I don't think the Chinese are at that phase yet. The Chinese are focused to be fully independent of Western technology. Mainly right now, the biggest thing right now is chip-making machines. Okay, which is extreme ultraviolet machines that basically does the chips, has lots of sophisticated technology, especially lenses from Germany, from what's that company from that's owned by Siemens, not Siemens, by Sony. Forgot the names of the lens lens company. Anyway, I forgot. Maybe look it up. I guess it's very very popular company. It's Carl Zeiss, I think. Yeah, Carl Zeiss lenses basically. So that's that. They have very sophisticated lens technology there in the whole world. They're the only ones who do it, and also they're the one that put this machine together for the chip design, which is the ASML in the Netherlands. Those two in specific are under American, let's say, oversight. If the Chinese can basically replicate both of those technologies and build the machine itself, then they can build the most advanced chips in the world. You see what I'm saying?
So they're close, but there's some ways to go really for the Chinese. Certain things few things they need to fix.
Yeah.
So
well, it's not like, let's be specific.
Yeah.
So what they've done this year, they have an extremely secret project. What was announced is that basically every engineer that works at the facility only knows his team members, and every single person has a fake name. Nobody knows nobody.
Wow.
Nobody knows nobody. In a secret facility, nobody knows anybody. And this is within Huawei's secret facilities. So they already have deconstructed, reverse engineered an older version of the latest of the ASML machines, and they've been able to recreate most of it. So now they need to go into they're not there at production though. This is you can say a prototype, but they've completed a full prototope.
So this is all for the microchip specifically.
Oh yeah. This is for basically this is what builds the microchip itself.
Prints the patterns.
Prints the patterns on the silicon. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
So they're not far. I think they said within a couple of years they're going to be able to do it. And usually when they say that, it's at least half or 1/3. They might need a year more. So let's see.
So they what they give out to everybody is a number that really is bigger.
It's bigger.
And makes them look less weaker than they are. They appear weak, but you're actually when you're strong, right? It's like art more. Right? So we have another question here in the chat. We got a couple more. Do you think that the thorium reactor will take off the energy pressure for China? I think they're talking about specifically the thorium reactor that China has recently been building out.
Is that the new nuclear technology that they have, right?
As a few months ago.
I mean, let's see. I mean, I don't really just worry about announcements. Let's see how much is it gonna Is it really in production? Is it, definitely if they've been able to make that breakthrough, it will help them from an energy perspective.
Okay.
The reason I'm a little bit doubtful is that they're putting so much solar, so much wind, so much this, so much that. If this was like a silver bullet, they wouldn't invest so much on the other stuff. But let's see.
Okay, no, multi-pronged approach. We'll wait to get some more information. So we got Assalamu alaikum. What proof do we have that Iran works with the U.S.?
Just look at the news. No, it's like so. Like the proofs are many. It's like nobody's sitting behind closed doors with these. Let's say with the State Department meeting the Iranians. Nobody does that. Nobody has these documents or have a recording. But what you do is you trace a pattern of political actions that have happened, and you analyze the interests, right? Like for example, since let's start at least from the Iraq war, right? The United States invaded Iraq and then basically pulled out, and who came in? The Iranians. Like who rules Iraq right now? The Iranians. So why would the Americans give Iraq to the Iranians?
Yeah,
right. There's definitely a relationship. In cahoots, you don't need. Nobody needs to analyze. It's facts on the ground. So right now, for example, when Israel launched an attack on Iran, what did Trump do? He came in, threw a couple bombs, didn't do much. Even basically, the National Intelligence Agencies of the United States said the impact was limited and there's no real damage.
And the Iranians moved it beforehand. Anyways.
And the Iranians moved it beforehand and so forth. And the Iranians, when they hit like the American bases, they would call. Like, come on! All this you don't get it after all this that they're in cahoots. I don't understand. Like, if the Americans don't like this regime, they would have look at the people believe contradictions. In one way, they believe that the Americans have the ability to just go in, snatch a president and his wife, in a very clean surgical 2-hour operation, and that's Venezuela, right? They can't snatch.
And they have a lot. They're not.
But
weak.
they can't snatch Khamenei. I mean, look at the Israelis. The Israelis basically killed so many nuclear scientists and generals, like one by one. They knew who where they were living, their families were living. They knew everything. If the Americans want to take out the regime in Iran, they would have done it in like 3 days. I mean, they invaded Iraq in 24 hours. Come on. The regime in Iran is in cahoots with the Americans. It's a fact. And let's stop basically, falling for the Western propaganda. Okay?
Sheikh, after the invasion in Iraq, right, you saw after they took out the whole government, they disbanded the entire military, right, got rid of them.
Yeah.
Then you saw people rise up and fight against the Americans who were invading into Iraq. Now, do we potentially see, where can Venezuela go, right? There's one option, I'm assuming that the regime stays strong. The other one, maybe people on the other side might actually get angry and things might become unstable.
In Venezuela?
Venezuela, yes.
Yeah, but see, Venezuela is not like Iraq. Iraq, basically, the Americans wanted to smash the regime to dust. And then Saddam Hussein was he was the real leader. Like Maduro is not really the real leader, as you can see. There's people who are calling the shots behind the scenes. So he's the guy with the thumbs up, right? So Saddam Hussein was a very hardcore leader, dictator of Iraq, period. He held everything with his fist. So no, you can't compare Iraq to Venezuela. No.
Now we got another question here. I think we got a couple more and we should be good. Is how will China navigate their demographic crisis? So I'm assuming they're probably people having kids and all that stuff.
Well, they're encouraging basically people having children and so forth. I know it's hard to sway that, but
because they had the one-child policy for a while,
for
right?
a long time. Yeah. Like this is part of the problem. Like, don't forget, there's demographic problems in Europe also, and in Russia, and like most of the world, really, even in America.
Yeah.
If the Americans decide to basically stop immigration, they can have also a demographic problem. It's just like within the Western, any liberal society, by definition, if you leave it liberal with no immigration, it'll just go extinct.
Yeah.
Because women don't want to have babies, or they want to have one baby at the age of 35. It takes just a matter of time until the population goes to zero, right? It's just how it works. What can we do? The liberals need to understand that it's not sustainable from a human perspective. The liberal ideology is not made for the human being. It's made for something else. And that's what we say as Muslims. God, who created the human being, gave us the right system for the human being. If you want to make up some stuff from your own head as a human and think you know as much as God, well, this is what's going to happen. You're going to get into extinction. But so the Chinese are going to continue to, like the Japanese and like the Europeans, they're going to continue to encourage, they're going to put incentives and money back for people who have more kids, and things might basically move a little bit. Will they be able to really solve it fully? Maybe not, but don't forget there are 1.4 billion people. So until they get into crisis mode, it might take them another, let's say, 30, 40 years. I don't think it's the top of their priority. Right now, their priority is to basically be technologically independent of the Western world, period. That's the number one priority. The minute they're fully independent country, then they can worry about other stuff. I'm not saying it's a small problem. It's a big problem, the demographic. But that's not. But there's many big problems, and that's not number one.
Sheikh, taking all the things we've spoken about this episode, that what the U.S. did in Venezuela to Maduro, what the U.S. is trying to do against China, and all the pieces that they're moving, trying to crack them, Chinese being patient, trying to get independence. What should Muslim leaders, and thinkers and people who are political minded, what should they learn from all of this?
What the Muslim leaders should understand is that, look at Maduro. An agent will be thrown in the garbage when his need is done. Okay, nobody's going to come and save you when look at Gaddafi, look at Saddam Hussein, look at Ben Ali, look at all the Mubarak. So you need to be independent yourself, just like the Chinese are trying to build technological independence and a strong economy. Our message to the Muslim world and to the leaders of all the Muslim majority countries, all of them, with no exception, is embrace your population. Focus on nation building and technological development, economic development, and create unions, just like the European unions, just at the economic level. Just at the economic level, at least as a first step. Because with this unity is what creates strength and at least the basis for independence. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself like a Maduro.
Yeah, thumbs up and saying Happy New Year and in a jail somewhere. So everybody, quick note, right? We've spoken about a lot of things, and a lot of things we're speaking about are probably leaving some of you guys maybe feeling a little bit helpless. I know at the end, Sheikh gave some very encouraging advice. But we see pressure mounting on the Ummah, and we may not know how to help. That's why we created Beyond Protest and Petitions. So it's a short, practical ebook that shows you how to move from frustration to real action, using Islamic principles that the Prophet ﷺ applied to create lasting change. Great news, it's free. The link is in the description, so check it out and have a read, inshallah ta'ala. And Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh, for your time for this episode and really analyzing this live, and to the team for putting this together. And we'll see you all in the next episode of I3 Pulse. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.